The story opens up with our protagonist, Chamber, and he gets told by two girls that he was beginning to become a burden on them. They had been waiting patiently for him for a while, thinking that he might gain some useful skills, but since that was not the case, he was pulling them down. They gave him a fake smile and also said that they were in this dawn with him. The two girls then went up to Jane, clinging on to him. They informed him that Chamber was leaving the party. Confused, he asked them why he was doing that, and the excuse Martha came up with was that for adventurers, skills were everything. Everyone gets a skill when they turn 15, and that skill pretty much decides their fates. However, Chamber's skill was level up, which was just a useless skill. Furthermore, she stated that compared to him, she had advanced fire magic, and the other girl, Naru, had holy magic. As for Jane, he was a hero, and that's why Chamber must have felt out of place in this party. Worried, Jane asked her where Chamber was heading to, but the two girls did not care about him and also advised Jane that he should not sulk for that boy and just forget what had passed. But still, the hero was worried about his comrade and wondered how he was doing. Meanwhile, Chamber, on the other hand, was fighting off against a couple of monsters in the wild, but seeing that he was not even able to harm them yet, he started to realize this was tougher than it looked. Usually when he was in the party, his role was to just tank and draw aggro while everyone else took down the enemies. But then suddenly, he shook his head, trying to get that thought out of his head because he was no longer in the dawn. There was no place for him in that party anymore, and now that he had to do everything alone, he sprinted towards the monsters. The monster attacked him with its club, and he blocked it with his sword. He kept telling himself that he needed to stay calm, and then quickly he sliced off the enemy. But that was not the end, and another one tried to attack him from behind. He blocked it as well, and then swiftly chopped off the monster's head. After defeating his opponents, he took deep breaths, thinking that he really could do this by himself. All of a sudden, another monster appeared and hit him right in the face. He realized that it was, in fact, the first one that he had failed to finish off completely. He tried to slowly get back on his feet, but the monster did not give him any chance and grabbed him by the face. The monster was ready to put an end to him, and in that moment, he recalled those two girls always looking down on him and calling him a useless burden. He grabbed his sword but could not stop hearing those voices and kept telling them to shut up. Using that anger, he was able to muster up the strength and stab the monster using his sword. Now that it was all over, he was frustrated that he was literally on the brink of death against just a weak monster. He stayed on the ground, catching his breath as his body could not move, and looking up at the sky. He thought to himself that he was actually going to die like this. His vision was beginning to blur out, but then suddenly, a notification popped up in front of him, saying that he had leveled up and his health and mana had been restored. He had no idea what was going on. However, he realized that he could move his body now, and the wounds on his face had also healed. He'd had dozens of questions going through his head, like what was that level-up voice he just heard? Why was there a plate of light hovering in the air in front of him? And what did HP and MP mean? He had absolutely no clue what was going on, but he had a feeling that all these values must be corresponding to his abilities displayed as numbers. And at that moment he finally realized that this must be his skill, level up. Taking a closer look at the window floating in front of him, he noticed that his stats had increased, and he wondered if it meant his physical abilities had improved as well. He began to piece it all together, that when he leveled up, his HP and MP got fully restored, and that's why his injuries got healed. In addition, his attack, defense, and speed had also risen as well. In short, with this skill, it was possible for him to keep becoming stronger. Just the thought of that made him jump in excitement, as it turned out his skill was not just a dud. Ever since then, he had been battling monsters left and right, and he could really feel the effects of level up. He felt lighter than before, and swinging his sword was much easier for him now. On top of that, now that his MP had increased, he could also do magic that he was not able to use before, and with all this, he was able to easily take down the orc that he was struggling with before. He leveled up once again, reaching level 4, and that confirmed his theory that the more he defeats monsters, the more his level would increase, or at least that's what it seemed to be. But then later, while he was resting in his new base, Rumble, he could not understand why his levels were not increasing anymore. He had been fighting monsters endlessly for a while now, however, his level was stuck, and he tried to think of a reason why it wasn't increasing now, but there were no definitive answers. He was determined to get stronger, and with that thought in his mind, he went to sleep for the night. The next day, he arrived at the Adventurer Guild to check if there was any interesting quest available for him. However, all of them just seemed mediocre. So he asked the receptionist, Nyako, over there to suggest him a good quest and tried to butter her up, saying that her cat ears were very cute, but that simply offended her even more as she clarified that she was actually a noble tiger. She yelled at him, reminding him that their quests were on a first-come, first-served basis, and it was something that he should have remembered himself since he had been active in the Rumble for many months now. But just then, he heard a commotion in the guild, and a woman was being exiled from her party. Her comrade was yelling that her skill was useless, and they did not need her anymore. Seeing that, Chamber could not help but think about how it was the exact same thing that he faced from his party when they called him a burden and kicked him out of the party. Her comrades looked forward to seeing what place someone as useless as her would end up, and they left her there. The girl tried to stop them, but it did not matter, and as she stood there all alone, she got emotional and thought to herself if they were right about her. Chamber walked up to her and expressed empathy, as he could understand what she must be feeling. He then suggested that he knew of a place which might be better for her, and turns out he offered her to stay at his place. Everyone in the guild was taken aback after hearing that, and even the girl was dying from embarrassment, while he, on the other hand, also got confused because in his head, he did not mean it in that way. The girl's comrades laughed as she had found someone to take care of her so quickly, and she warned Chamber that he would soon see just how useless her skill, the divine message, was. He was curious to know what that skill does, and before leaving, the women mocked them that the two of them were actually a great match with their dull wives. Later, the two of them sat in a tavern, and he ordered some ale for themselves. She did not seem very comfortable with it, and then he explained to her that he was also exiled just recently, so whenever something bad happens, he believed ale was the best thing. He did not force her and assured her that if she did not want to drink, he would just drink both. Hearing that, she chuckled and agreed to drink up with him. He then introduced himself to her and stated that he was also adventuring solo right now. The girl did the same and introduced herself as Ale, a D-rank adventurer. Chamber then mentioned that he was technically a C rank. However, now that he was going solo, he was practically a D rank right now. Hearing that, she suddenly panicked and confessed that she was actually below even an E rank, while he simply tried to calm her down. She then further explained that even though she was a priestess, the only healing spell she could use was the lowly lesser heal. She started crying and believed that she really was useless, while Chamber could understand where she was coming from because, in the end, he was also useless, just like her. All of a sudden, Ale started acting weird and stated that Chamber was just 30 points away from his next level up. After conveying that message, she came back to her senses and freaked out. She kept apologizing to him, as sometimes she says things without thinking because of her skill. She was really embarrassed about it and kept cursing her skill for how useless it was, while he, on the other hand, had no idea what was going on with her. But then he began to piece it together. Seeing that she mentioned level up and experience points, he finally realized what her ability truly was, and he quickly grabbed her, telling her that he really needed her. Meanwhile, back at the Dawn, Martha exiled yet another member of their party because he was simply too weak, despite having a useful skill. The man did not want to go without a fight, and just as he was about to take out his sword, she attacked first and made an explosion right behind him. She warned him that next time she won't miss, and with that, the man ran for his life. Naru was just enjoying everything in the back, but Jane was not like them, and he stated that the two of them were being a bit too harsh. The girls simply argued that they needed more suitable people for the Dawn, while Jane contemplated how 3 members of the party had already been exiled. He could also see that just because Martha and Naru had strong skills, they believed that they were on top of the world, and he wondered if skills could really change a person this much. Their rank as a party in Dawn was steadily rising, however, he could not help but feel like something was wrong. Recalling how he used to enjoy the company of Chamber, he thought to himself if that's why everything felt different now. He was not ready to believe that Dawn had no place for him, and he wanted to know what exactly he was doing now. Later on, Chamber and Ale continued their adventure, and while he fought against the monster, she provided him cover from behind. He took down the monsters and thanked her for the help. Turns out the 2 exiles had decided to team up for a trial run. It had been since he tackled a quest together with someone again, as he had been fighting solo for a while now. However, as he continued taking down the monsters, he could feel that he was getting stronger for sure, and it was all thanks to his level-up skill. After he took care of all of them, Ale was simply amazed seeing how strong he was and praised him highly, while he was simply happy that he was finally able to shine in a battle and was getting praised by a girl. The level-up skill was really a lifesaver for him because it increased his power through experience points, which he earns from defeating various monsters. As for Ale, her skill was Divine Revelation, and it was a bit complicated. Divine Revelations shared information about those nearby, and in his case, she told him his progress to the next level earlier in the tavern, which was super useful for him. From that information, he was also able to figure out that each goblin he defeats gives 3 experience points, and that the required experience points for each level increase as he levels up. Hence, coming back to the present, he believed that with these goblins that he just defeated, he should be able to level up now. But then suddenly, Ale called him out and grabbed his hand. He was completely taken by surprise and asked her what she was doing. She pointed out that his arm was wounded, and she offered to heal him using her healing magic. However, just as she was about to do it, he got a message that he had leveled up. It just confirmed that his calculation was right, and he was kind of proud of himself. But Ale, on the other hand, started screaming and was shocked to see that his arm's injury healed on its own without her even doing anything. He was quite chill about it, since it was just an effect of him leveling up. But he also understood that it was his first time leveling up in front of someone else, and he realized that he had a lot of explaining to do. So later at night, as they set up a campfire, he explained to her everything about his skill, how he gathers up experience points after defeating monsters, and that helps him to level up and increase his stats. She was surprised to hear that a skill like that existed in the first place, and he actually agreed with her. But jokes apart, she expressed that she was quite jealous of him, since her skill was not suited for adventuring at all. Since they were on the topic, he asked her why she became an adventurer, and she answered that she wanted revenge. He was a bit startled hearing her say that, and she explained to him that it all started when she was still a child. She was the second daughter in a family of 4, and her parents were merchants who were usually away from home. Her sister, who was 7 years older than her, helped with work while she was left with the acquaintances. One day, which was no different from any other, she sent her family off and waited for their return. However, they never came back, and it turned out they were attacked and killed by thieves while traveling. After losing her family, she got placed in an orphanage and she locked herself away. The only thing that consumed her thoughts were questions about why her innocent and kind family had to suffer. Over time, her heart became stained with hatred, and that's why she wanted to become an adventurer, so that one day she could avenge her family. Chamber was speechless, and she also understood he must be surprised after hearing all that from her. But then, with a smile on her face, she assured him that that was all in the past now. She had realized that now that she was the only one who had survived, her kind family would not want her to spend her life running after revenge. Besides, she was sure those villains must have become wanted and would have already gone through hell by now. So her current goal was simply to become a great adventurer. But then she once again brought up that it was just an impossible dream since she was very weak. However, Chamber did not agree with that at all, and with a bright smile, he stated that the two of them would become amazing adventurers together, leaving her quite surprised. After they finished up their dinner, Ale was just staring at him, and she then asked him what his story was and why he became an adventurer. He got nervous and asked if they really needed to discuss it, to which she replied that it was only logical for him to share as well since she talked about it. He agreed that she did have a point and explained why he became an adventurer in the first place. Cut to a flashback. When he was little, one day he saw Jane defeating a person in a sword fight. Everyone was shocked to see that a 10-year-old just beat an adult adventurer, even though it was a low rank, and they all called him a genius. So Chamber kept chasing after him and challenged him in a sword fight. However, even after 33 fights, he was not able to land a single hit on him, and Jane told him to give up already, as he did not have the talent, and there were some things that just could not be changed by efforts alone. Chamber agreed that it might be true, but still he did not want to give up and yelled that he had to keep pushing on. His only rule was never give up, no matter what anyone else says. Seeing how passionate he was, Jane was actually impressed and stated that not giving up could also be a talent in itself. Ever since that day, the two of them became friends, and Chamber declared that he would become the world's greatest adventurer, who would even surpass a talented guy like Jane as well. Coming back to the present, he admitted that his reason was more like an impulsive decision. Ale actually liked his story and wondered if this is how rivalry looks like. Hearing her say that, he hoped for their relationship to be a rivalry as well. Meanwhile, back at Jane's party, another member was exiled from the party, and as he left the room in frustration, the two girls simply did not seem to care at all and called him useless as well. Just then, Jane came in and questioned them how many exiles there had been. He could see that that man was genuinely trying hard. However, the girls laughed and stated that he was not of their standards at all. She also claimed that no amount of effort could make up for a lack of talent. Jane then stated that he was confident that no one could beat him with a sword. However, he believed that that was the result of not settling solely on talent, but also putting in effort himself. Because of Chamber, he had realized that it was not always about talent, and since he and the two of them could not seem to connect on this subject, he declared that as of this moment, Akatsuki had disbanded. The two of them were stunned and questioned him why he was doing this when Akatsuki was just on the verge of A rank and even S rank was within their reach. They also claimed themselves as the best party ever, and Jane responded that that might be true in terms of skills. However, for him, that was not enough. They asked him if he had even decided on a new partner for himself, and he answered that he could just team up with Chamber, which left both of them even more shocked. But first, he wanted to start over by himself, and with that, he left them with a fresh motive of becoming the best adventurer from scratch too. Cut back to Chamber. While he was in a tavern, Ale sneaked up on him from behind and scared the soul out of him. She was yet again drink, and was insisting he drink more as well. Suddenly, her skill got activated, and she stated that he needed 60 more experience points to level up. As she came back to her senses, he thought to himself how her skill had been helping him out very much. He started calculating how much work he had to put in to get 60 more experience points. But then once again, Ale called him out and insisted he drink with her. He agreed and was actually surprised to see how much she liked to drink. However, as he said that, she went silent and started crying. He panicked and wondered if he had said something wrong. He explained to her that he did not mean it in a bad way, but then she apologized to him for tearing up like that. She expressed it was just that she found drinking with him very fun. For a long time now, she had been a burden to her party, but now that she was drinking with him after a quest, it made her feel like a real adventurer. Chamber simply chuckled and told her that she was the one who had actually saved him after he hit rock bottom from being cast out. Hence, he wanted to thank her. However, she, on the other hand, had already fallen asleep, and he just smiled looking at her. Later on, the two of them decided to continue their adventure, and he was quite surprised to see how energetic she was being even after drinking that much the other day. Just then, he noticed a group of goblins in the woods, and he quickly brought out his sword, ready to fight those monsters. As he started taking them down, there were still more of them coming from behind, but that was not a big deal for him, and he continued attacking with his sword while Ale was also able to handle her own. With that, the two of them decided to keep pressing forward. After taking care of all those monsters, they stopped for a second to catch their breath, and Ale was still a little shocked since those were quite a lot of monsters that they just faced, while Chamber was simply glad that they made it together even though it was just the two of them. Just then, he got a message that he had leveled up, and it left him surprised as well as he realized that they had taken down that many. But then he saw a weird icon on top of Ale and wondered what was going on. He received a message that he had now learned party formation, and he just stood there confused. He had never heard or seen anything like that before, and when he checked its description, it showed him the members that were available for him to make a party with, and Ale was on top of that list. There was an arrow next to her name, and when he clicked on it, a confirmation window opened up, asking him if he would like to add her to his party. He still did not really understand what it meant because technically, the two of them were already in a party, so he decided to just go ahead and click on confirm. However, he then thought to himself that he should not be deciding this on his own. He called her out, and nervously, he asked her if she would like to team up with him. He was so nervous he could not even maintain proper eye contact. But then when he looked at her, she simply stood there with a confused expression. She stated that they had already teamed up, and he explained to her that she was absolutely right. However, what he meant was officially teaming up and going forward with it. Before he could even finish, she said yes in the skip of a heartbeat, and he was very surprised. She reminded him that he said they would become amazing adventurers together, and hence, because of that, she was ready to officially team up with him. He was glad to hear that, and with that, they decided to keep moving forward. As he clicked on the confirmation button and added her to his party, he wondered what would happen now since nothing seemed to change at all. He guessed that there must be some significance to it if there was a whole feature for it. But then Ale called him out and suggested they should continue ahead now that they had officially become members of a party. He agreed with her, and since there was still some time left before sunset, he decided to head to the Noi Forest. Entering the forest, they encountered various types of monsters. Chamber did the fighting while Ale supported him with her healing magic. Now that the two of them were a party, he could feel that they were starting to sync up really well. After taking down a bunch of monsters, he proceeded with gathering the magic stones that the monsters dropped, as they could earn some money if they took it back to the guild. Then, all of a sudden, the level up voice echoed, and this time, Ale could hear it as well, which left both of them confused. Turned out, she was the one who had leveled up, and her HP and MP had been fully restored. She had no idea what was happening to her body, and why she was hearing a voice in her head, while Chamber was completely shocked seeing that she leveled up just like him. He began to realize that when he makes a party with someone, the members would be able to level up as well, and he wondered if this was the true effect of the party formation feature. He wanted to quickly check out her stats, but she did not understand what he was talking about. Just then, her stat window opened up in front of her, which shocked her even more, and as he went through her stats, he told her that she had actually leveled up. She could not believe that and asked him if this was the influence of his skills. He guessed that that must be the case and explained to her what exactly stats were and how they continued to increase as levels go up. Excited, she asked him if that meant she had actually become stronger, and he confirmed that that's exactly how it works. She was bursting with joy and started celebrating, but then she noticed that there was something even more. She had received a message that said she could now use light arrow, and she got even more excited because earlier she could only use healing magic, but now she could do attack magic as well. Chamber was also happy for her. Now that she had obtained an attack magic, they decided to immediately test it out. So aiming at a tree in front of her, she used her wand and launched a light arrow, successfully hitting the tree. The arrow left a hole in the tree, and Chamber was really impressed. Ale was simply jumping from excitement as she still could not believe she used an attack magic. But just then, he saw a bunch of enemies lurking in the grass, and he quickly warned her. Turns out there was a whole horde of goblins that had appeared right behind that tree. He knew that this situation was bad, and he told Ale to run away from there as the goblins were right behind her. Seeing how there were so many of them, he wondered if they simply came out because of the noise or if this area was actually their territory. The two of them ran for their lives while the goblins continued to chase after them. They were coming from every direction, and the two of them managed to take down the monsters that came in their way. However, there were still a lot of them charging right at them. One goblin caught up to Vale, and it grabbed her bag. Chamber told her to quickly get rid of her stuff, and she tossed that bag behind. All the goblins then shifted their attention to that bag, and seeing that all of them were distracted because of the loot, he tossed his bag as well while the two of them used that opportunity to run straight out of the forest. They finally made it out of the forest, and as they stopped to catch their breath, they noticed that the goblins were no longer chasing after them beyond the woods, so they decided to head back to Rumble and report this whole situation to the Adventurer Guild. Later, when they reached the guild, they explained everything to the receptionist, and she was also very surprised to hear that such an incident happened in the Noi Forest. But then she noticed another lady standing near the stairs, and she requested Chamber to follow that lady and head upstairs. The lady escorted him to a room upstairs, and when he walked inside, there was a mysterious man who first apologized to him for calling him so suddenly like this, but there was something he wanted to talk about. Confused, Chamber asked him if he was actually waiting for him, and he responded that he would like to make a request of him. But first he introduced himself as the guild manager, Tsuihou, and hearing that, Chamber still could not understand what possibly a person like him could ask him. The manager informed him that the hero party Dawn was on the verge of a rank, and since Chamber was also a member of that party, there was something he wanted to ask him about them. Chamber clenched his fist in frustration and clarified that he was no longer in that party. As for their rank, he informed him that when he was still there, it was just a C rank. The manager then switched subject and stated that he had heard his recent performances were quite impressive. He assured him there was no need for him to be so tense, as he simply wanted his help for an investigation request. He then explained to him that the location he needed him to investigate was the Forest of New. Based on what he reported just a little while ago, that forest had a massive goblin presence, and the manager wanted him to find out the reason behind it. He also advised him to conduct the investigation during daytime, since goblins were known to be most active at nights, so during the day there would be less of them. The guild had suspicions that there might be a king goblin in that forest. Hence, the manager warned him that if he happened to run into the goblin king, he should run away immediately, because the king was known to be a very powerful monster. Chamber also realized that even though this request sounded easy, it was really dangerous, while the manager yet again assured him that there was no need to worry and it was just a survey that he had to do. So later on, he and Ale came back into the forest, and she could clearly see that he was worried, so she asked him what he was thinking. He brought up that this mission was very dangerous, and he was actually worried for her as well, since they had already experienced this forest was not normal. But then she got a little mad and questioned him if he really believed she was unreliable. She reminded that they were now at a party, so no matter what happens, she would go with him. He did not argue any further, and Ale was excited to continue their investigation. Just then, he noticed a big goblin in front of him, and what shocked him even more was that it was a goblin swordsman. It was bigger and way stronger than any ordinary goblins, and it was known to act with a group of regular goblins like a mini-boss among them. The two of them quickly hid behind a bush, and as he explained all this to her, she was quite impressed seeing how much he knew about all these monsters, and asked if he had fought one before, to which he answered that he had not. However, he believed that with their current strength, they could take it on, and so the two of them came out from hiding and were ready to face the goblins. Ale attacked first using her light arrow, and she hit the goblin swordsman directly in the eye. But that was not enough to take it down, and Chamber had already expected that, so he quickly followed up by closing in on the monster, and using his sword, he chopped off the goblin swordsman's head in one strike. Now that the leader was down, the regular goblins were panicking, while Chamber and Ale decided to take advantage of their confusion and continued their attack. They managed to take them all out, and Ale helped him out with his wounds while requesting him not to push himself extra hard since this was just an investigation after all. Chamber understood what she was saying, but he wanted to earn some extra experience points just in case, so that even if they run into the Goblin King, their survival chances would increase if they were leveled up. On top of that, although there would not be a big horde during the day, he believed that if they accidentally got spotted, calling for backup would be even more of a hassle. So in short, he just wanted to be prepared, and since that was the case, Ale agreed with him and decided to level up and take down the Goblin King. They kept moving forward into the forest, defeating any regular goblin that came in their way, and then finally they discovered a campsite where there were goblin tracks all around. It looked pretty ransacked, and they wondered if some adventurers were attacked at this spot. Just then, Chamber recalled that there was one more thing the guild manager had informed him. A C-rank party had gone missing in the Forest of New, and he requested him to investigate that as well if he got the chance. Seeing that there were missing persons related to this case, he started thinking to himself if the other adventurers simply dumped this troublesome situation on him. Just then, Ale noticed something on the ground, and when she picked it up, she recognized that it was Adelina's earring. She was the leader of her previous party, and she was also the same person who exiled her that day in the guild. The two of them began to realize that while her group was setting up a camp, they must have been attacked by a horde of goblins. Ale wanted to search for them deeper into the forest, and she apologized to him for dragging him into this as well, since she knew it would be very risky, but it was something that she wanted to do. However, Chamber simply smiled and stated that he already knew she would say that. He agreed to help her find Adelina and started following the goblin's footsteps to see where they lead to. Along the way, he noticed a hand sticking out of the bushes. When they inspected it closely, they were shocked to see that there were a lot of goblin corpses in that area, and they wondered what exactly happened there. They then noticed a blue trail going deeper into the forest, and it led them to a cave. The walls of that cave were stained with blood, and there was no light whatsoever inside, which made both of them a bit unsettled. Nonetheless, Chamber took the lead, and he used light magic to make a ball of light, lighting up the area around him. Ale was yet again amazed seeing his spells, and added that even if there were goblins inside the cave now, they should not be attacking suddenly now since they were known to be weak to light. He then called out to see if anyone was in there, and a voice came, questioning him who he was. Turns out, Adelina and her whole group were hiding in that cave, and they looked beaten up. Ale quickly ran up to her, asking if she was okay. She offered to heal her, while Adelina, on the other hand, still could not understand what the two of them were doing there, but Ale simply told her to forget about that for now and used her healing magic on her. After she healed all three of them, Adelina asked her why she was helping out the people who brutally kicked her out, and in response, she simply smiled and stated that it did not matter to her. She had become an adventurer to help people, and she was just doing what seemed so natural to her, which left all three of them at a loss for words. Adelina chuckled, seeing how kind of a person she was, and expressed that she would always be grateful for this. Ale did not really want to sound so high and mighty, so she quickly apologized to her. Adelina promised to treat them all to a drink once they get out of there, and with that, they decided to hurry up and exit the forest. But just then, one of her men noticed something. There was a goblin mage along with a couple of regular goblins standing right outside the cave. Although it was a low-level creature, it was quite troublesome since it could use attack magic, and Adelina also suggested that since none of them had any ranged attacks, they should approach quietly without being noticed. However, before she could even finish, Ale launched the light arrow and took out the goblin mage in one hit, leaving all three of them completely stunned, as it was their first time seeing her use an attack magic. Chamber took care of the weaker ones, and Ale provided him cover, while Adelina and her group simply could not believe what they were seeing. The two of them killed all the goblins without breaking a sweat. Just then, both of them leveled up, and while Chamber reached level 7, Ale was on level 6 now. The two of them were overjoyed, and they started dancing while the others looked at them and were quite surprised, as they had never seen Ale smile so brightly like that. At that moment, Adelina also realized that Ale had changed because of the Chamber, and she was kinda glad to see that. Chamber then asked all of them to follow him, as he knew which way they could exit the forest. One of the men saw some more goblins nearby, and he was really starting to get sick of them, so he brought out his axe and decided to take his revenge for the last time. However, just as he was about to attack them, a mysterious hooded person stepped in and cut down all the goblins as well as the adventurer in an instant, which left all of them shocked. The hooded figure took out the goblins, and Baltz was also on the ground, dead as he bled out from his wound. None of them had any idea who this person was and what was going on. Adeline's comrade suggested they should make a run for it, as it did not seem safe to stay there, while she simply told him to quit whining like a baby. She also wanted to avoid a full-on brawl. However, seeing how the hooded person was ready with his sword, it did not seem likely that he would let any one of them go. The only option they had now was to work together and figure out a way to get out of there. She instructed Ale to provide backup from behind, while Chamber volunteered to take on the front lines. Lastly, she and her comrade Ricardo decided to strike when there was a clear opening. Chamber tried to calm down, telling himself that he had leveled up and was now stronger than before. With that, the four of them prepared themselves for the fight and took their positions. Ale started off by shooting a light arrow, but the enemy dodged it with ease. Chamber took that chance and closed in on him to attack him with his sword. However, he once again dodged the attack with extreme agility. The hooded person then struck back with his sword, and Chamber was somehow able to block it, but his attacks were lightning fast, and Chamber knew he could not hold it for long. While he kept him busy, Ricardo used that chance and activated his quick dash skill to charge at the opponent from behind. He was able to land a strike, however he was not able to pierce through him, and he realized that he was actually wearing armor beneath that hood. But it was too late, and the person stabbed Ricardo with a sword. As a desperate last move, Ricardo grabbed onto his hood to reveal who exactly this person was, and it turned out that it was a black goblin. Seeing how dark it was, Chamber wondered if it was even a goblin in the first place. But then suddenly, the goblin attacked him, and he barely managed to evade it, and it cut his face. Blue was going into his eyes, and he could not see properly, while the goblin was ready to land the final strike on him and end him, when all of a sudden, a light arrow hit the goblin right in the face. Ale saved him from being killed at the last second. However, even though the arrow hit its face, it did not hurt the goblin at all, and all of its attention was now shifted onto her. The goblin charged right at her, while Chamber screamed out to her to make a run for it. But before she could even comprehend all this, the goblin was right at her face. Just then, Adelina acted as her shield and blocked the attack with her sword. But that was not enough, and she still took damage, which left her bleeding. With that, she stated that she had now paid back the debt she owed him. Ale offered to heal her wounds right away, but she stopped her, as there was no time for that, and the black goblin was still coming towards them. She told her that she should care more about herself than others, but then, before she even realized, the goblin was right on top of her and was about to end her, when Chamber came from behind and attacked him using his sword. However, he was not able to cut him at all, and all it did was simply hurt him a little. He felt as if he was punching a rock. The goblin quickly got back up and kicked Chamber so hard, it sent him flying back into a tree. Ale got worried for him, while Adelina also got back up and sprinted towards the goblin. She tried to attack him with the sword, and the goblin was able to block it with ease. However, she kept pushing on and managed to stab one of his eyes, which left the goblin scream in agony. She laughed at the goblin, as she had finally found out a part of him that was softer. But then, before she even realized, the goblin used his sword and stabbed her in an instant. Shocked, Ale questioned her why she was acting so recklessly, and she answered that it was just her stubborn pride as the party leader, which wouldn't allow her to run away while her comrades were falling right before her. But Ale was very different from her. She banished her from the party, but she still helped them all with her healing magic, even though they were not on the same team anymore. So with a dying breath, she told her to hurry and run, while the black goblin sliced her in half right in front of Ale. Witnessing that, she was too stunned to even speak and fell on her knees, while Chamber slowly got back up and realized that this chance was a life-or-death gift from Adelina. As the goblin was now focused on Ale, his left side was completely vulnerable, and even though he knew he could not cut it, he could at least aim for the head. So he leaped into the air to smash its head with everything he had got. However, to his shock, his sword broke in half, and the goblin had managed to slice his shoulder. At that moment, he saw there was something like green flames on the goblin's sword. The goblin then grabbed him by his neck and lifted him up in the air. Chamber could not even begin to understand how come a goblin was this strong, even though he believed that he had gotten stronger after leveling up so much. He realized that this enemy was way out of their league, as it had already taken down the entirety of Adelina's team, and he was certain that he would be the next. But then he saw Ale behind the monster, still on the floor and crying. He understood that if he were to go down now, Ale would die as well. When he was all alone after being banished from his team, she agreed to form a party with him. Even though she did not know him that well, she trusted him and followed him, and because of that, he wanted to protect her no matter what. And so he put his hand on the goblin's face and used the light spell right in his face. The goblin got flashbanged, and while he was busy covering his eyes, Chamber quickly went up to Ale and asked her to get back up. The goblin was not able to see anything and swung his sword blindly in random directions, while the two of them made a run for it and exited the forest. They arrived back at the Rumble and finally made it to the Adventurer Guild. Seeing how badly beaten up both of them were, Nako checked up on them and saw that he was bleeding a lot. She immediately asked for help, but Chamber stated that they first needed to report everything to Tsuihou. Just as he said that, Tsuihou himself came downstairs and told him that they would talk about it later. First, they needed to treat his wounds. Later, after he got treated, Tsuihou took both of them to a room where they met up with another man. His name was Dingle, and he was the guild master of Rumble. He asked them to just relax as he was going to explain everything to them. He believed that the black goblin they just encountered in the forest might be blessed by an evil god. There was a goddess named Ni who was the only god on this continent that grants people skills. However, he explained that that was only among humans. Just like how there was a god for humans, the other races had their own gods as well, and of course that included monsters as well. They were known as evil gods and were the ones that humans do not worship. He believed that the black goblin they faced was an individual who was blessed by the monster god, Azi Dahaka, and it allowed him to possess abilities similar to their skills. Hearing that, Chamber also began to understand the reason why that goblin was so fast and tough. Dingle further stated that it was not an enemy they could have handled at their rank to begin with, while Tsuihou also apologized to him for sending him out there without knowing everything. But he had never expected things would turn out like this. The guild was already requesting backup from other guilds regarding the King Goblin, and they decided to leave the Black Goblin to them as well. Therefore, he assured him that the guild would now handle the rest and told him that they should wrap up this request for now. Chamber, on the other hand, sat there thinking that he had failed his mission. Even though he had thought he had gotten stronger, he was still powerless and was not skilled enough. But then he looked at Ale, who was still trembling in fear, and he was really worried about her as well. She could not do a thing while the people who were once her comrades stood right in front of her and died. It was frustrating for him to admit that he failed, but he also understood that there was nothing more he could do right now. But then suddenly, Ale apologized to him, and it left him confused. She believed that if she had not insisted on continuing the investigation, none of this would have happened. If only Adelina and the others had stayed hidden in the cave, they would have survived. But because she was the one who wanted to keep moving forward, she felt that it was all her fault. Chamber told her that none of it was true, and it was not her fault. But then she further stated that the only reason Adelina got hurt was because she was protecting her, and in the end, it was all because she was useless. Hearing that from her, everyone in the room went quiet for a moment. Since everyone who tried to protect her seemed to get hurt, she expressed that she did not want anything like this to happen again. But then, Chamber told her that if she really thought that about herself, then he was also in the same boat as her. He was also useless in that fight and was not able to do anything. Ale stated that that was not true at all, as he had saved her countless times, and he responded that he feels the exact same way as well. He reminded her that it was only thanks to her light arrow she shot at the Black Goblin that he was still present there alive. In reality, he had been saved by her as well. Adventurers were always walking a tightrope of danger where they could die any moment, and that was why they protected each other. That's what a party was made for. With that said, he told them that he wanted to be that kind of adventurer who could put his life on the line so that he could protect his friends. Ale was simply speechless hearing that. However, he also knew that at his current level, he was not able to save anyone, and because of that, he wanted to grow stronger. With all his heart, he believed that the two of them could certainly become stronger. At that moment, she remembered about his level-up skill, and he just smiled while looking at her. He was sure that with level up, he could become strong enough to defeat that Black Goblin. Ale also expressed that she really hated giving up as well. She also wanted to become stronger so that no one else would have to risk their lives to protect her, and seeing how she was clenching her fist, he totally understood what she was feeling. Tsuihou already guessed what their answer was going to be, and Chamber declared that they would wrap up this investigation request. That was not exactly the response Tsuihou and Dingle were expecting from him, and he stood up, requesting them to set him up with a new quest. Tsuihou asked him what type of mission he wanted, and he told them that he wanted to take down a Black Goblin. That left him even more shocked, while Dingle just burst out laughing. He loved the passion that he showed to them, and he asked them to follow him. He brought out some keys and started playing with them, while Tsuihou reminded him that that was a very important bunch of keys. He simply ignored him and told them to follow him. When Chamber asked him where they were going, he answered that it was going to be a great place. They went into the basement, and while Dingle was trying to figure out which key was the right one, Tsuihou informed Chamber that this place was the guild's storage room. Dingle was really struggling with the keys, and Tsuihou tried to help him out, but he got mad and simply broke the lock. He started searching for something in the storage, and Tsuihou reminded him that there were many valuable items in there. But yet again, he completely ignored him and found what he was looking for. As he stepped outside from the dust, Chamber asked him if he was okay, and Dingle handed him a sword. He was shocked to see that it was a golden great sword, while Dingle informed him that its name was the Thunderblade Thor, which left him even more stunned. The moment he grabbed that sword, he realized how heavy it was and could not even begin to move it. He could not understand what was up with that weight because even though it was the same size as his old greatsword, it was 10 times heavier. He thought to himself that if it was still him before leveling up, he would have most certainly dropped it already. Dingle also knew that it must be heavy for him and explained to him that the man who wielded this sword before was his comrade, an A-rank adventurer. That man was very strong, but one day he lost his life in battle. Even when he knew he would die, he felt that it was better to risk his life to protect than to be protected because it simply suited him better. He was a complete idiot who faced a dragon all by himself just to buy time for his friend Dingle and his comrades to escape. Chamber asked him why he was giving him such an important sword, and Dingle recalled what he said moments ago, how he wanted to become an adventurer who could risk his life to protect his friends, and he stated that he actually resembled that man a lot. He patted him on the head and assured him there was no need for him to think about the small stuff. After all, he was not giving it to him for free. It was a payment in advance for the reward. Confused, Chamber asked him what reward he was referring to, and he replied that he was now getting a direct request from the guild master Dingle himself, which was a black goblin subjugation quest. Later on, Chamber and Ale traveled through a deserted land, and she noticed that he was breathing heavily. So she asked him if he was feeling alright, since he did say earlier that this new sword was really heavy. Thinking about how Dingle had basically ordered him to learn to wield it properly, he believed that it was actually heavy in more than one sense. But whatever the case, he also wanted to get stronger so that he could begin to handle this sword, and until then, he knew that he could not defeat the black goblins. Ale agreed with him as well, and that was also the reason why they had come so far, to the hunting ground of tyranny, to sharpen his skills. As soon as he arrived there, he saw 3 goblin swordsmen right in front of him, just like the intel had informed him. They began their attack, and Ale started off with shooting a light arrow at one of the goblins. While all of them got distracted, Chamber sneaked up on them and slashed down one goblin. But even with just one swing, he really started to see how heavy this sword was. He was certain that if it was him before leveling up, he could barely hold it. However, it also meant that the more its weight, the more it packs a punch. The real ability of the sword was going to start now, as he recalled what Dingle had told him. This sword was an offensive sword, and its true ability only gets activated through consecutive strikes. Thor was a sword that generates lightning by swinging quickly, and during that moment when it gets infused with thunder, its weight actually becomes lighter, which helped the user to increase his speed even more. That's exactly what happened, as Chamber managed to land a strike in the blink of an eye and slashed another goblin swordsman. The more he swung it, the more lightning got built up in the storage, which increased its power even more, and with that he sliced down the last goblin swordsman. As he beat all 3 of them, Ale came running to him and was amazed that he took out an entire group of goblin swordsmen by himself. He replies that it was actually this new sword, which was, by the way, still crackling. But then suddenly he saw a giant boulder falling down from the sky right on top of them, and he quickly grabbed Ale and got out of the way. At first it looked just like a rock, but then looking at it closely, Chamber stated that it was about time they showed up. Turned out it was none other than the goblin leader. Ale asked him if this was their objective this time around, and he confirmed that this was it. Usually, a single goblin swordsman used to lead a group of regular goblins. However, when there was a group of multiple goblin swordsmen, it always meant that there was an even higher boss leading them. He had requested Nyako to gather intel to pinpoint this location, and it was now confirmed that their predictions were spot on. The goblin leaders were known to be tough enemies, but he also guessed that it should give them a lot of experience points, which they needed to level up as fast as they could. So with that in mind, the 2 of them prepared themselves to take on the goblin leader. Ale was still a little shocked seeing how huge it was, while Chamber asked her to keep it busy so that he could close in on it. She started off by shooting a light arrow, which hit the leader directly in the eye. Just as he was about to strike it with his sword, the monster punched the ground and made him fall back. Chamber took a step back and then immediately charged straight towards it. However, he was not able to land a fatal attack and only managed to slice the skull mask that the goblin leader had on its head. It then tried to attack him with its fist, but he evaded it right on time and fell back to think about his next move. The monster's big size and wide range of attacks were making it hard for him to get in close, and so, since that was the case, he decided to try something different and charged up his sword. It was an ultimate attack that Dingle had told him about. Once the sword gets charged with lightning to its maximum level, that energy could be released towards the enemy. Chamber did exactly that, and as he swung his sword, all of the energy got released in a single strike and directly hit the goblin leader. The goblin leader was completely toasted, and it fell down to the ground, defeated. Chamber himself was shocked to see how powerful that attack was, as it was more than he had expected. But then all of a sudden, he felt that the sword had gotten heavy again, and he remembered that Dingle did warn him that once the sword released all the stored-up lightning, it would revert back to its original state. He realized that if he ever misused that attack randomly, it could cost him his life as well. Just then, both of them got a level-up message, and they had both leveled up to level 8. It shocked them both since Ale had actually leveled up twice in one go, and he understood that the experience points they obtained from the goblin leader must have been better than he thought as well. They decided to open their stat window and check what new upgrades they had gotten. He was surprised to see that he learned lesser heal ability. However, since his magic power was low, he could only use it once and could not do proper recovery. But then he looked at Ale, and she was a little too excited as she yelled that she had finally learned it. The move that she learned was named Light Javelin, and it was a dream spell for all priests since it was a very powerful move, even stronger than Light Arrow. She was overjoyed as she could feel she was getting stronger and stated that she could now contribute more in battles. Hearing her say that, Chamber thought to himself that she was trying really hard to get stronger and catch up to everyone else. He then suggested that they should head back to Rumble for a while now. The reason being, they had already defeated the boss in that area, and grinding on weak enemies was not all that efficient. Plus, he felt that they should not rush it from the get-go, and since they had been on the edge lately, a breather was really needed, and Ale agreed. Later, when he returned back to the Adventurer Guild, everyone was shocked to hear that he took out a goblin leader. He presented the magic stone that he obtained after defeating it, and wanted to cash it in. But Naka was still stunned and asked him how he took down a goblin leader with his rank. He simply answered that it was just the result of their hard work, but that was not really what she wanted to hear. The two of them then sat together to have a drink, and Ale mentioned that it had been a while since they last drank. She was curious to know what their next move was going to be, as they had now already taken care of the goblin leader, and he assured her to just leave it to him because he had a lead on what they should do next and told her to relax and enjoy her drink for now. The next day, the two of them returned to the same spot of the hunting field. She asked him why they had come back there since they already defeated the goblin leader, and he explained to her that that was exactly the point. Like he said earlier, goblins usually form packs. However, goblin leaders do not band together, as each one was the sole boss of its pack. Hence, goblin leaders were always in territorial battles. In other words, it meant that now that they had defeated the leader present in that area, another would show up to expand its territory. Just then, Chamber heard something behind him. When he turned around, there was a goblin leader along with some other goblins, just like he had expected. But then suddenly, another leader appeared right behind him. He was not much surprised to see that they all had decided to gather on that spot, and in fact he saw this as an opportunity where they could take them all down without waiting. The two of them began their attacks, using all the moves they had up their sleeves, and they successfully defeated both goblin leaders along with their packs. After the battle, the two of them stood tall, and as a result, Chamber and Ale both had leveled up to level 12 now. Meanwhile, back in the city, there was a whole commotion going on, and it turned out some goblins had infiltrated the city. Serenui, sitting in his office, could hear noises coming from outside and wondered what was going on, while Dingle, on the other hand, did not really hear anything. When all of a sudden, Nyako barged in the office and reported to them that a group of goblins were causing havoc in the streets, leaving both of them shocked. Dingle quickly asked her to give him the details, and she briefed them that although D-rank adventurers were fighting back, there was still a goblin leader among them, which was making things difficult, while Serenity still could not comprehend why goblins would rampage in the city. Dingle asked her if there weren't any higher-ranked adventurers around, since there was no way mere D-rank adventurers could face off against a goblin leader, and she told him that it was not that simple. Ever since that incident of the Black Goblin, most of the high-ranking adventurers had left on other missions and only some decent-ranked adventurers were left. Dingle guessed that they must have bolted before getting assigned to that mess, since seasoned adventurers do usually have a nose for trouble, but it also meant that just a bunch of clueless rookies were left in the town. He was simply disappointed and yelled at Tsuihou to quickly go to the warehouse and grab any weapon he could find. Tsuihou asked him if he was really serious about this, and Dingle simply stated there was no time for them to argue as it was an emergency situation. Arriving outside, he saw some adventurers were trying to fight against the group of goblins, and there was one girl who used her fireball attack to attack the goblin leader. However, it had no effect on it at all, and he was just about to smash her with its fist when, all of a sudden, a light javelin hit the monster in the back. It was Ale and Chamber, and they were finally back in town. He wondered why there were goblins inside the city and also noticed the injury the goblin leader had on its back, which clearly did not look like something an adventurer could cause. But whatever the case, he understood that they needed to take care of this and asked Ale to use that new technique of hers. She used her enchant spell and enhanced his sword's attacks with light property. Chamber lunged at them, and first he took out the 2 goblin swordsmen that were there, which stunned all the adventurers as they could not believe how easily he took down those swordsmen in no time. Meanwhile, Dingle was also observing how he was first taking out the small goblins to charge up his sword with lightning efficiently. He was genuinely impressed to see that he was already getting the hang of that sword, while Chamber faced off against the goblin leader itself. He started with slicing off its leg, which made the monster fall over. He then jumped up in the air, and using all the electrical energy stored within the sword, he stabbed the goblin leader and put an end to it, leaving all the spectators shocked as he defeated such a monster without breaking a sweat. Everyone praised him, and Dingle also complimented him that he did great. Chamber was happy to hear that from him when Tsuihou came back, struggling while holding a hammer bigger than himself, and asked what he should do with it now. Later, they gathered in Dingle's office, and Chamber explained to him everything about his level-up skill. He was quite surprised to hear about such a skill, and asked if he had really leveled up that much in such a short period of time, and in response, Chamber nodded. The guild master then questioned him why he was telling them about his skill now. It was of immense value, and he believed that if word about it gets out, troublemakers would surely come sniffing around. Chamber simply answered that he told them about it because he trusted them, and when Dingle asked him why he trusts them so much, he replied that it was just a gut feeling, which left both Dingle and Tsuihou speechless. He burst out laughing as he really liked how honest he was and stated that his judgment about people was not so bad either. He also said to them that when he looked at both of them, it was hard for him not to think about that, and the 2 of them turned a little shy. But putting all that aside, Dingle asked him what his thoughts were about that goblin leader he just fought on the streets. Goblins were usually timid creatures, and it was very rare for them to venture outside their place since they were territorial beings. Chamber also agreed with that statement and expressed that he was curious as well, especially about all those scars that the goblin leader already had. Dingle knew for a fact that there must be a reason behind this, as something like this had never happened before, and he wondered if the Black Goblin had something to do with all this since that was the only latest cause that came to his mind. Tsuihou asked from Chamber if he had seen that Black Goblin attacking others as well, and he confirmed that he did. So Tsuihou guessed that the Black Goblin might not be seeing the other goblins as allies, or it was simply a rampaging lunatic who was attacking indiscriminately. That goblin leader earlier must have lost its territory to the Black Goblin, and that's why it came into the city. If that was the case, Chamber wondered if those goblins were actually trying to escape instead of targeting the town, and Tsuihou stated that it was still just a theory, however, it could be possible. Dingle also understood that they did not have much time now before the Black Goblin's influence spread further, and hearing that, Chamber and Ale said in unison that they needed to settle this case right away. Later, the 2 of them packed their bags and were ready to head out. Nyako was really worried for them and suggested that they should wait, as reinforcements from other guilds were also going to arrive in just a few days. Chamber thanked her for thinking about them so much, and he admitted that this mission was very dangerous. However, they could not sit idly when there was a possibility that something like this would happen again soon, and plus, he also wanted to settle things with that Black Goblin himself. With that said, they left the guild while Dingle and the others wished them luck for their mission. The 2 of them made their way back into the forest of Noi, and as they moved deeper, they were horrified to find the carcass of a severed cave boa. He noticed that the magic stone was still there, and there were no signs of it being eaten, which meant that it was killed just recently. Ale wondered who could do such a thing, but Chamber already knew the answer to that, and was now even more sure that the Black Goblin was still in this forest. They continued moving forward and were actually quite deep into the woods, where neither of them had been before. Suddenly, Ale saw a gigantic spider behind her, and it absolutely terrified her. But Chamber quickly took care of it and sliced it in half. He asked her if she was all right, and she was too scared to even speak properly, and asked him what exactly was that creature. He informed her that it was a paralyzed spider, but that was not the last of it, as there was a whole group of it right on top of them, and she realized that this place was their territory. They decided to get out of there quickly. However, Ale then asked him if he also felt that something was wrong with this place. She pointed out that ever since they entered this forest, they had encountered many monsters, but they had not seen any goblins at all. Come to think of it, he also felt that even if it was still daylight, this place looked like a completely different forest. He admitted that something was definitely wrong, but they did not really have any other option and moved forward cautiously. As they both went deeper into the forest, they were shocked to see that there was a goblin settlement. It explained why they had not seen any goblins in the forest, because they all had been gathered in this place. However, they seemed to be on high alert and were actually hiding in their tents, so they both decided to observe for a while, and since the sun was also about to set soon, he suggested that they should take some break as well and would take turns keeping watch for the night. Later at night, while Ale was resting and Chamber was on watch duty, he noticed that the sky was getting brighter and it was about to be daytime. However, there were no changes with the goblins in the settlement whatsoever. He started to think that watching this settlement would not yield anything when, all of a sudden, his eyes caught the black goblin slowly approaching that area. The black goblin walked through that settlement, and Chamber finally realized that this whole area was his territory after all. But then he noticed the other goblins' reactions, and they also seemed terrified. He immediately woke Ale up, and she asked him if something had happened. He whispered to her to keep her voice low and informed her that the black goblin had appeared. The moment she saw the black goblin walking there, chills went down her spine, and she started thinking about how he had killed Adelina and her whole party. Chamber could see how she was trembling in fear and asked if she was all right. She assured him she was fine, while in her head, she also understood that she needed to keep herself together. They could not just keep playing it safe all the time. She wondered if the black goblin was like a boss around there, and he guessed that that could be the case, but still, he felt that it was not as simple as that and something was definitely wrong. Just then, the black goblin found a small goblin that was trying to hide from him, and he killed it without any reason, which left both of them completely stunned. Another goblin tried to sneak away from behind him, but he took it down as well, and all the other small goblins, witnessing that, started running away from him, and the two of them could not even begin to understand what the hell was going on. Chamber began to realize that the reason why they did not see any goblins in the forest earlier was because they were all actually hiding from that monster. To the black goblin, there was no such thing as kin, and humans and monsters were all just like prey to him. Ale also pieced it together that the goblins they saw in the Rumble City must be escaping from him as well, and that's why they looked so beaten up. The black goblin was the source of all this chaos, and they knew that they must stop him. The monster then began to walk away from there, and both of them decided to minimize their gear and quietly follow him. As they followed him into the woods, they wondered where exactly he was heading to, but then, all of a sudden, the black goblin stopped and turned around, staring at them with a horrifying look. They realized that they had been spotted, and he quickly charged at them to kill them both, but Ale immediately used her light javelin attack and sent the monster flying back into the trees. Chamber was amazed to see the power of her attack. However, she knew that it was too early to celebrate, as the fight was far from over. The black goblin removed his hood, trying to show that he was now serious about it, while the two of them began running away from him. He also started chasing after them, and Chamber was surprised to see that he was actually catching up to them. However, he was neither scared or worried about it, because now that he had leveled up, his speed was off the charts, and he was certain that the goblin wouldn't be able to catch them so easily. They continued to run away from him until eventually they reached a point where they stopped completely and waited for him to come after them. The black goblin also felt that something was wrong and looked around when suddenly he stepped on a spider web. Turns out, Chamber was using the paralysis spider's territory as a trap to stop him in his tracks, but of course it did not affect him at all, and with a single swing of his sword, he destroyed all the webs that were in his way. Chamber was not much surprised to see that it barely slowed him down. However, that little moment of distraction was all that he wanted, and thanks to that, he was now prepared to fight him with his new sword. He had been raising his level all for this specific moment, while Ale wanted her revenge as well, and with that, he charged at the black goblin to put an end to this. Ale first launched a light arrow to distract him, and Chamber followed it up by closing in on him and attacked him with his sword. The goblin failed to block it properly, and the attack successfully connected, grazing his face. Chamber was starting to get the hang of his sword, as he could now wield it just like his old iron sword, and with its original weight and the boost from the enchant light, he could feel its power was on another level. His opponent stood still in front of him, and he could not quite read what he must be thinking right now. However, he was sure of one thing, and that was, he was now in rage. The black goblin lunged at him and started attacking him with brute force. Chamber blocked him and recalled that black goblins did not have any sort of sword skills. They just overpowered their opponents with sheer strength and speed. All he needed to do was just keep up with his speed, and then he could easily block his every strike. Plus, those attacks were simply charging up his sword with electricity, and the more he charged it up, the stronger it became. Both of them continued to exchange blows, blocking every attack of their opponent, until finally Chamber got the upper hand and pushed the black goblin using sheer strength, which amazed Ale as well. However, he knew that he could not drop his guard even for a second, as the black goblin was still hiding his secret technique, the green flame that broke his sword in half the last time they fought. The black goblin finally covered his blade in green flames, and Chamber was not afraid of it, as he was sure that this sword wouldn't break like the last time, and with that in mind, he charged straight towards the monster, and in the blink of an eye, landed a direct hit on him. He thought to himself if the fight was over, as he definitely felt his sword connecting. However, when he looked back, the black goblin was transforming his whole body and turned into an entirely different and terrifying form. Chamber quickly told Ale to get back while he thought to himself what the hell was happening, and if this was the influence of the dark god. He wondered what he should do now when, all of a sudden, the monster disappeared from his eyes and appeared right at his face, attacking him with his claws. He managed to block it in time, but could not believe how insanely fast the black goblin had become. Its speed and power had skyrocketed, and Chamber was struggling to block his incoming attacks as he kept getting pushed back. He knew that he could not keep this up for long, so he decided to create some distance between them. However, before he could even react, the black goblin was right on top of him, ready to crush him with his claws. Just then, Ale saved him and shot her light javelin attack right in the face of the monster. That gave him a moment to breathe, but she warned him to be careful as the black goblin, yet again, tried to attack him. This time, Chamber was able to dodge it, and he quickly stepped back but was shocked to see that even a direct hit of light javelin had no effect on him whatsoever. However, Ale pointed out that it did take some damage as his face was now covered in bruises. Since that was the case, she continued to attack him and kept spamming the light javelin. However, the black goblin dodged them all with his immense speed and remained unscratched. Chamber also could not predict his movements anymore, as it was truly acting like a beast now. Since that was the situation he was in now, he decided to fight as his true self as well, like a tank. He instructed Ale to find an opening to strike while he was going to draw its attention. He charged right ahead with his sword while the black goblin evaded his attack and counterattack with its claws. Chamber blocked it, and Ale used that opportunity to launch another light javelin at the monster. He pressed on as well and grazed the black goblin with his blade, who immediately jumped backward to prevent a fatal blow. However, he started to bleed, and seeing that, Chamber got motivated that if they keep this up, they will be able to end this. Chamber noticed that even though its movements were tricky, it was acting emotionally now, which made its attacks a little predictable. He and Ale could handle both close and long range, and since both of them had been leveling up together all this time, he could feel that they were in total sync. And so, believing that the battle was in their favor, he once again sprinted towards the monster. They continued to exchange blows while Ale was shooting her light javelin from a distance, and even though it managed to block it sometimes, Chamber was maintaining the pressure on it, and eventually he could also see that they were wearing it down little by little. All they needed to do was keep up the pressure while maintaining some distance, and he believed that it would soon be over. But then, all of a sudden, it closed in right on his face and attacked him, while he barely managed to block it in time. Just as she was about to use her light javelin to strike it, the black goblin noticed her and immediately went behind Chamber, as if it was using him as a shield to protect itself. Just then she saw the black goblin staring in her eyes, which left her completely stunned, as she thought to herself if it was actually focusing its attention towards her. Chamber continued to attack it, and when she got the chance, she launched her light javelin at the monster. However, it blocked it with its arm, and it became clear that it was already adapting to their strategy. Chamber could also tell that Ale was running out of her magic power, and he himself was not too sure how much longer they could keep this up. However, he could also see that this whole thing was draining the black goblin's stamina as well. His sword's thunder was charged up to its limit, and he decided to put everything he had got in this final strike. Both of them lunged at each other, ready to attack, but then suddenly, The black goblin leaped into the air and went behind him. It landed right in front of Ale, and she was the one who it was aiming for now. Seeing that monster's face up close, she panicked and tried to use her light javelin attack, but it was too late, and before she even realized, the black goblin stabbed her with its claws. Chamber screamed out her name as she fell down to the ground, and the monster quickly shifted its attention back to him and attacked him. He once again blocked it, and filled with rage, he counterattacked in order to land a fatal blow. In his mind, he knew that he needed to do something about this beast quickly, as he could no longer just stand by, and he maintained the pressure on the black goblin. Seeing Ale bleed out back there, he called out to her and told her to quickly use her healing magic on herself. However, she, on the other hand, knew that her healing spell won't be enough for this type of wound. Still, she reached out to her wand and aimed it up in the sky, thinking to herself that there was still one thing that she could do. She fired a light arrow up in the sky, which caught Chamber's attention, but he had no idea what she was doing. While he was distracted, the monster managed to gain the upper hand and slashed his face with its claws. Chamber was pissed, and he attacked back, landing a direct hit and slicing down its shoulder. The two of them paused for a moment, and just by looking at it, he could tell that it was beginning to run low on energy, which meant that now was the time for him to launch an all-out attack. He wielded his sword, unleashing all the electrical power that was stored within it, and the black goblin also covered his claws in green flames. In that moment, Chamber was shocked to see that it still had a trump card left up its sleeves. However, it did not matter now, as all he needed to do was strike before it did. But then, before he could even swing his sword, the goblin managed to close in on him and sliced him with its claws. As blood erupted out of his wounds, he could not believe that once again, he failed to protect anyone. Thinking about Ale, he apologized to her for failing her when, all of a sudden, he heard the level-up voice. All his HP and MP got fully restored, and as he began to heal, he had no idea what was happening. At that moment, he saw a dead paralyzed spider falling from above, and he realized what just happened. Cut to a flashback. When they were still in the paralyzed spider's forest, Ale's divine message skill got activated, and she stated how many experience points they needed for the next level, and that both of them were currently at level 30. While Chamber was calculating how many monsters they needed to get to the next level, Ale suggested that they should try to keep the experience they gained to the bare minimum so that, if things go wrong, they could use the full recovery of HP and MP when they level up. That way, it would be their secret weapon for emergencies. However, he also mentioned that they could not earn experience without defeating monsters, so they needed to fight somewhere where they could easily spot small monsters without being interrupted. Ale suggested they could use this place near the paralyzed spider's nest, and he agreed that that might be the place for this plan. And so, coming back to the present, as his body was healing from his wounds, he thanked Ale, as even in such a situation, she remembered that plan. He got back up, grabbed his sword, and swung it at the black goblin with full force. It took quite the damage as blood erupted out of its body, but it only made it more furious, and it started attacking him like a wild beast while Chamber dodged each and every one of its attacks. He even mocked it, telling him that its pathetic attempts won't hit him anymore, and while the goblin tried to attack him once again, it got hit by a light javelin from behind. Ale was also back on her feet, completely healed, and Chamber was glad to see her. Just as the monster tried to shift its attention towards her, Chamber attacked it, and even though it managed to block him, he kept pressuring it and sliced it from the side. He admitted that it was indeed very tough for still not going down yet. However, as he and Ale stood side by side, they decided that it was time to end this once and for all. The two of them charged up their attacks, and as the black goblin charged towards them with its claws, together they unleashed their attacks and landed a direct hit, resulting in a big explosion. When the dust settled, the monster was completely obliterated, and with that, they had finally taken down the black goblin. The two of them were also stunned, as they still could not believe they did it. However, before they could even celebrate, they got back on their guard as they were completely surrounded by a horde of goblins. There were a lot of them, and they both discussed that it was quite a reward for taking down a black goblin. But Chamber was not worried at all, and it did not matter to him how many goblins came at him. He would take care of all of them since he had just leveled up. But then, all of a sudden, they felt tremors in the ground, and the whole forest was shaking. When they looked up, they were absolutely stunned, seeing a massive monster staring at them from above. As it came closer to them, it was a goblin. However, it was not just any other goblin. It was the king goblin. They were shocked to see the boss of the settlement itself had appeared in front of them, and it tried to step on them to crush them, but they quickly got out of the way. Seeing how much destruction a single stomp did, they knew instantly that if they got hit by that, they were done for. The king goblin then tried to grab them, and Chamber quickly pushed Ale back to save her, but he got captured instead. There was nothing he could do to get out of its grip, and he knew that if this continued, it would be the end for him. But then suddenly, he heard a voice telling him that they would take care of the rest. In an instant, the king's head got cut off from its body, and Chamber fell down on the ground. When he looked up, he was stunned to see that the person who saved him and killed the king goblin was none other than Jane. He could not believe that, while Jane simply apologized to him for keeping him waiting. Ale rushed up to him, asking if he was okay and offered to heal him. But then Jane walked up to him and used the extra heal spell on him to completely heal his wounds in an instant. Ale was even more shocked to see that the person in front of her was using a high-level healing spell and questioned him who exactly he was, as not only could he use the extra heal spell, he took down the king goblin in a single strike. Before Jane could answer, a lady called out to him and reminded him that there were still some low-level monsters left around them. Her name was Dragwell, and Jane told the two of them to take some rest while they would take care of the remaining monsters. That actually annoyed Chamber a little, seeing how high and mighty he was being, and he looked forward to seeing what he was going to do. At the same time, he realized that that's what Nyako must have meant when she said that extra support was on its way. He could already see that Jane had grown a lot since the last time he saw him, but he wanted to know exactly how much it was. Jane and Dragwell approached the goblins and stood right in the center. Just as the monsters were about to attack them, he activated his chain lightning spell, and with a snap of his finger, he electrocuted all the goblins that were coming at him and toasted them in an instant. The remaining ones got terrified. However, Drywell was not going to allow them to escape. She sent a small bomb towards the ones that were running away and exploded them. Still, there were some goblins left, and they lunged towards Jane to attack him. But with a single swing of his sword, Jane took all of them out in an instant, like it was nothing. He put his sword back, gracefully adjusted his hair, and once again apologized to Chamber for keeping him waiting, while he and Ale just stood there staring at him and wondering if he was actually serious. Chamber then told her this is what their actual destination was, and she immediately said that there was no way it was possible. Later, they all got together in a tavern, and Jane mentioned how it had been a while since he drank with him. They used to have some really wild drinking competitions, and Chamber also remembered that he never managed to beat them. Speaking of old times, he asked him what was up with Martha and Naru these days while thinking to himself that he did not really want to see them again. Jane briefed him that the two of them broke up right after he left as well, and honestly, he believed that he did not belong with them in the first place. Meanwhile, Drywell was demanding more drinks as she was far from done drinking. Chamber was quite surprised to see what her personality was, and Jane explained to him that he was actually teaming up with her as the new Dawn. Chamber commented that he had gotten quite a unique person for his party, and now that he mentioned it, Jane also informed him that she was called the Dragon Priestess who guards the Holy Sword. He did not stop there and kept on going, telling him that when he drew the Holy Sword, she acknowledged him as the new wielder, while Chamber, on the other hand, was simply lost as all these sudden twists were way too much for his brain to comprehend. Hearing all that, he expressed that up until now, he had felt he was doing great, but now, compared to Jane's tales, he was merely goblin hunting. But then Jane assured him that was not true at all. He could also see that he had grown a lot as well, taking down the Forest Blessed One and defeating a goblin swordsman. Those were all incredible feats. He got a little shy from all those praises, but then he realized what he just said, and he questioned Jane if that black goblin was really just a goblin swordsman running on the blessings of the evil god, and he confirmed that. Chamber also understood that that must be the reason why he did not level up even after defeating something that strong and did not get a single experience point. But putting that aside, Jane further stated that his growth was not just about his strength either. He had realized that when they reported the whole incident to the Rumble Guild, and seeing how everybody absolutely adored him, he had become someone who everyone needed now. Chamber began to get embarrassed after being praised by him so much, and he believed that if he was saying it, then he surely must have grown, while Jane also told him that he should have more confidence in himself. However, he then put down his cup and stated that there was something he wanted to talk to him about. Chamber wondered what it was when Ale sneaked up on him from behind, scaring the soul out of him. Turns out she could not handle her drink yet again and had gone into her drinking state. He yelled at her to stop doing that while she continued to insist him to have some drink with her. He then looked at Jane and asked him what he was about to say to him, but he simply smiled seeing the two of them and told him it was nothing. He promised that he would work hard to match up to him, but Chamber did not believe him and questioned him if he was making fun of him or something. However, jokes aside, he also promised that he won't back down and one day he would stand shoulder to shoulder with him. On that note, the two of them cheered to their growth. The next day he was completely hungover, and Tsuihou could also tell that he must have had quite the evening the other day. He quickly apologized to him, and the manager assured him there was no need for that because, after all, they were the heroes who saved Rumble City. Chamber did not feel right taking all the credit and mentioned that in the end, it was Jane who took out the king goblin. However, Tsuihou stated that even though that was the case, the guild highly valued his and Aile's achievements as well. But then he went straight to the point and asked them if they were interested in leaving this town, which left both of them confused. He informed them that Dingle was already preparing a letter of introduction for them to the Boldo Guild. Boldo was a much bigger city than Rumble with tougher monsters nearby, but he was certain that that won't be a problem for them anymore. He could already tell that they must be finding the monsters around Rumble too weak for them now, and so he once again asked them if they would like to leave this city and move up to the next level. Later, the two of them finally arrived at the gates of Boldo City, and there were two guards. The guard asked them if they were adventurers, and Chamber just showed them the card he had received from Dingle. The guard noticed that it was a legit card, so he allowed them to enter the city. As soon as they entered the city, both of them were shocked to see how completely different it was from Rumble. It was so spacious, and there were so many people on the streets. There were many types of foods that he had never seen before as well, and all of it simply amazed him. He had a feeling that he could finally have some new experiences in this city, and it was all thanks to Tsuihou's recommendation. They had also heard that this town was split into two parts. There was the noble district on the east side, while the commoner district was separated by a high wall. Chamber guessed that the selection of shops must be better on the east side, and Ale also believed that all sorts of talented craftsmen must be gathering over there. He agreed with her and thought that if they wanted some gear, they should head straight to the east side. But then Ale asked why exactly he had come there, as she was sure he must be wanting to go with Jane. He admitted that at first he did think about teaming up with him, however he also knew that if he did that, he would slowly end up relying on him a lot, just like old times. He wanted to grow together with her at their own pace, and she was kinda glad to hear that. With that said, they decided to head to the guild first. The moment they stepped into the Adventurer Guild, they were welcomed by two beautiful young ladies. Chamber got completely mesmerized seeing them, while Ale simply coughed to bring him back to his senses. He got all nervous and tried to introduce himself, and the lady asked him to follow her as they had already heard about him from Dingle. Since he was a C-rank adventurer, she had already prepared 2 quests that were available to him, but before he accepted, she warned him that these 2 were very important quests that were related to a certain threat that Boldo was facing right now. He was a bit taken aback hearing that, and he asked her if it was that important, then why were they trusting it with a newcomer like him? She simply replied that Dingle had told her the 2 of them just wouldn't die even if they went on somewhat reckless quests, and at that moment, he started cursing the old man in his head. Nonetheless, he checked out what the quests were, and it was related to an attack on trade caravans by mysterious monsters in northern Boldo, and there was a kidnapping incident involving wyverns. He recalled that wyverns were known to be quite a formidable foe, and it made both of them a little unsettled. However, they quickly pulled themselves back together, reminding each other that they had grown quite a lot as well, and this was in fact a perfect opportunity for them to test out their skills. So without any delay, they accepted the quest. Later, they arrived at the site where the merchant convoy was attacked, and he noticed that the monster-repelling road was also broken. He then looked at Ale, who seemed a bit confused, so he asked her what she was thinking, and she answered that she had expected they were going to challenge the wyverns. The best excuse he could come up with was that he believed before challenging a wyvern, they could use a little warm-up first, as Tsuihou had already told them that this city was much tougher than what they faced in Rumble. Ale teased him, asking him if he was really scared of the monsters present in this city, but he refused to accept that and kept saying that they needed to do things in order. Just then, they heard some animal sounds from the broken cart that was left on the road. He wondered if the cart was from the convoy that was attacked, and when he checked inside to see what was making that noise, a ball-like thing came rolling out and hit him directly in the face. Turned out, it was a sheep-like creature, and while Chamber was pissed at it for hitting him in the face, Ale on the other hand found it really cute. She absolutely adored it and really wanted to pet it, but then she noticed something was wrong with it. Chamber warned her that no matter how cute it might look, it was still a monster, but she still approached it because it clearly looked like it was hurt. She tried to calm the creature down, telling it that everything would be all right, when all of a sudden, she sensed something and immediately brought out her wand. She heard some noise coming from the bushes, and Chamber stepped up in front of her, ready to face whatever it was. But then, they got surrounded by big sheep-like monsters. He wondered if they were the little one's friends or something. However, to their shock, the the monsters began kicking it as if it was a ball for them to play. Ale felt bad for the little one and questioned them why they were hurting Mai-chan like that, while Chamber, on the other hand, wondered what kind of name was that. The monsters shifted their attention to them, and he guessed that these must be the same creatures that attacked the caravan. They began charging at the two of them, and Chamber decided to take the lead. Seeing how it was doing just a reckless charge, he hit the monster back and struck it so hard, it went flying back and also hit all the others in the line like a ping pong. However, Chamber could not help but feel like something was wrong, as the sensation he felt from that attack was not quite right. Ale praised him for taking them all out in a single hit, but he was not too sure about that when suddenly he saw something was happening to the monsters in front of him. Its fur started coming off, and what appeared from within shocked them both. It was now a bull-like creature, and Chamber realized that the fluffy fur must have absorbed his attack earlier. All of them had shed their fur, and he thought to himself if this was their actual true form. But then he also wondered if all the fur that was protecting them was gone. Does it mean they would only be able to tank one hit now? He decided to test that out and asked Ale to attack them with her ranged attacks. She launched her light javelin at one of them, and it took that monster out in an instant. His theory was right, and since that was the case, he was not afraid of them anymore and started taking out those monsters left and right. Now that he understood how to fight them, they did not feel tough at all, and the two of them took them all out without breaking a sweat. After that, they checked the cart, and since there was no sign of the caravan around, they guessed they must have escaped back to the city. He also suggested that they should head back to Bulda City as well, but the little monster was still there, crying in pain. Ale quickly went up to it to heal it with her magic, and Chamber once again warned her that it was still a monster. She admitted that what he was saying was true. However, she felt truly bad for it, seeing how it was attacked by its own kind. Because its appearance and color were different, she knew that it must have been bullied a lot, and she understood the pain of not being needed by their peers all too well. She got emotional and requested that they keep this one with themselves. Seeing the look in her eyes, he had no idea what to respond to that. He recalled that there were adventurers who could use monsters to fight with them, but that required the Beast Master skill, which neither of them had. However, as the little one got healed up and got back on its feet, it looked at him with its bright eyes, and the system, identifying it as a unique specimen, gave him an option if he would like to take it as a companion. He was shocked seeing that message while the sheep continued to stare at him with those sparkling eyes, and was eagerly waiting for him. He thought to himself that this ability should not be possible for a regular guy like him without the monster tamer skill in the first place. But at the same time, he knew better than anyone that at this point it was pointless for him to expect common sense from his level-up skill. He wondered if he should really accept a monster as an ally, but then he saw the sheep looking at him with a bright smile, while Ale, on the other hand, was also doing the same thing. So he just gave up and agreed to take it in. He pressed the confirm button, and with that, the unique angry sheep was now part of his party, which made Ale extremely happy. Seeing how the system was repeatedly telling him that it was a unique species, he wondered if it was something different from the blessing of the Dark God, as this was the first he heard about it. Then the system asked him to give it a name, and Ale was hell-bent on naming it Mai-chan, so he did not argue with her and confirmed that name. Next up, he opened up its stats window, and the stats on it were actually quite impressive for a monster. Even though it was just a level 1, its HP was already higher than Ale's, and that surprised him very much. Since that was the case, he contemplated that this monster could make up for a pretty solid tank. But putting that aside for now, he walked up to her and greeted her by shaking her hand, which made Mai very happy as well, and with that, they decided to head back to the guild. Later, he reported the whole incident of how a flock of angry sheep was attacking the merchant caravan to the guild's receptionist. She noticed Mai by his side and asked him if the little monster was now accompanying him, but then he got really nervous as he had no clue how to explain to her why he was carrying a monster with him. Before he could even say anything, she asked him if he was actually a monster tamer as well, and since he did not really have anything else for making an excuse, he nodded and said that was precisely what he was. She then gave him a ring, which was called a taming ring, that signifies that the monster was tamed, and Ale loved how cute Mai looked with that ring. She then asked him to pay the ring fee, and he thought that of course she would charge him for a thing like that as well. He then took his leave from the guild, and as they walked through the street, he suggested they should head back to the inn for now. However, Ale wondered if they could really go back to the usual inn now that they had Mai in their party as well, and he guessed that it would be fine, now that they had the taming ring. Even if it does not work out, they could just go and look for another since this was a pretty big city. And so, after being rejected from a bunch of places, finally, an old man accepted them, and although his place looked quite shabby, and it made them both uncomfortable as well, At least they were allowed to stay there, hence they spent the night there. The next day it was time for Mi's training, and they found a wild deer in the fields. He believed that it would be a perfect opponent to test Mi's skill, and asked her if she was ready. However, she started shaking her head and looked terrified of the deer. He could not understand why she was acting so scared when technically, the wild deer should be weaker than the angry sheep. He asked her doesn't it embarrass her to be scared of a weaker foe, and then tried to push her to get her into action. But as he was doing so, she accidentally slipped and began rolling downhill, straight towards the wild deer. The deer thought that she was coming to attack it, so it attacked back, flipped her up in the air like a ball. Chamber and Ale knew that they must step in now, and just as they were about to begin their attack, he noticed Mai coming falling down from the sky, and she landed so hard there was dust everywhere. When the smoke settled, it turned out she had landed directly on top of the wild deer and took it out without even realizing. Both of them were shocked to see that while the wild deer was down, Mai on the other hand was just standing there like nothing had happened. He could not believe that she just shrugged off a wild deer's direct attack and then won with sheer luck. Her tank skills were truly amazing, and that only confirmed that Chamber's instincts were right. She could become a very powerful tank. The only thing they needed now was for her to gain some fighting spirit, so they moved on to the next enemy. Ale was a little worried and asked him if he really thought Mai could handle this one alone, and he answered that she needed to tackle this by herself so that she could boost her confidence. Besides, her opponent was just a slime, which was known to be the king of weak monsters. He wanted her to build her confidence through victories, and that's why he put her up against the weakest monster of all time. Scared, she first tried to touch it, and when she saw its reaction, she started poking it repeatedly, and even Chamber had no idea what the hell she was trying to do. But then the slime got mad, and it attacked by throwing itself onto her, which made both him and Ale worried for her. However, once again, she just stood there like nothing had happened. Chamber was amazed seeing that she took a full body slam and did not even flinch, even though it was just a slime, and now that it was stuck on her, she started spinning and threw it off of her. She then charged at it and tackled the slime head-on, splattering it into a rock. Finally, she gained some confidence in the way she started laughing. Chamber began to wonder if she was actually a bully towards those who were weaker than her. After that, once she had gained her confidence, her growth was also rapid, and she went up against several monsters. Although she needed more experience points for leveling up than the two of them, her boost in abilities was really amazing, and with her insane amount of HP combined with her damage reduction skill, she was becoming a full-fledged tank. Later, when they got back to the city, even the guards were happy to see her, asking her how she was doing and offering a cucumber as a treat. Turns out they absolutely adored her, but they were not the only ones. Surprisingly, almost everyone in the town had grown fond of her, and they gave her all sorts of treats. She had become quite the celebrity in Bluto, and the reason was, typically, the monsters that tamers keep by their side looked fierce and intimidating. However, Mai's friendly appearance really stood out, and that's why everyone loved her. Every time they were in the city, it was almost a struggle to get back to the inn. But at the same time, thanks to her, he was able to save on food costs, so there's that. Later at night, they went to a tavern, and Ale was really happy to see that their party was coming together nicely. Chamber was also glad that Mai was now holding her own, and she was shaping up just as he had imagined. So now that they were ready, he decided that it was about time to take that quest and challenge some wyverns. Meanwhile, at the southwest mountainous area of Bluto, inside a cave, many small creatures were running away from something. Turns out there was a dragon in that cave, and a mysterious hooded man approached it. The dragon unleashed its fire breath on him, but the man dodged it with ease, and as he landed right on top of its head, he stabbed it in the face and took down the dragon in an instant. As the dragon lay dead on the ground, all of a sudden light returned to its eyes once again, and it woke back up. The scene shifts back to Chamber and Ale, and as they continued their hunt for the wyverns, she noticed that Mai was starting to get really tired. Come to think of it, they hadn't had a break for a while now, and he asked Ale if she was feeling okay. She told him she was completely fine, since thanks to her leveling up, her stamina had also improved quite a lot, and that made him wonder if Mai was getting tired because of her lower level. He suggested that they could just recover her by forcing her to level up, scaring Ale, but of course he was simply joking, and they decided to take a break on that spot. She noticed that he looked lost in his thoughts, so she asked him what he was thinking, and he brought up that it was quite strange how few monsters they had seen so far on this road. Now that he mentioned it, she also felt that this stillness was a lot like the one they experienced in the forest of Noi, but he told her not to dwell on it, and they rested for a while. Later on, when they were ready to move out, all of a sudden, Chamber heard a loud cry from the mountains. It was coming from the mountaintop, and they wondered if it was a wyvern. It sounded very painful, as if it was a sad cry, and he guessed that something strange must have happened. So the three of them decided to follow it and see what was going on. As they moved forward, they encountered a panther leo in the mountains. Chamber could not understand what a panther leo was doing there, since it was said that the monsters in the mountainous area were lower rank. Until now, they had not seen a single monster in that area, and now all of a sudden, seeing a C-rank monster in front of him shocked him. But then Mai stepped up, and she was ready to fight the panther leo. He was proud to see that she was charging right at the front lines by herself, and he hiked her up from behind as well. She charged ahead, and the panther leo tried to attack her back, but she hit it first and tackled it into a wall. Chamber was impressed, seeing how intense that slam was, and he and Ale continued to back her up. After the battle was over, he praised Mei for showing such bravery and thought to himself that her physical damage reduction skill was truly amazing, as she was able to withstand even the panther leo's claws. He was sure that she would become an important member of his party when suddenly he heard the level up voice. He leveled up, and as a result, he learned the party enhancement ability. It was a new one, and he had no idea what it did. But a screen opened up in front of him, which asked him to select a member to enhance the party. He did not really know what it would do, so he decided to be the test subject and selected his name. All of a sudden, a bright light surrounded him. This light felt different to him as compared to the one he gets when he levels up, and he could feel that his body had gotten really light. Just then, a monster appeared right behind him, and he saw it as a perfect dummy to run a test drive of this new ability. He mocked the monster, telling it to come at him, and it began attacking him with its needle-like hands, but he evaded each and every one of them very easily because of how light he had gotten. He could also feel that his physical abilities had been enhanced as well. The monster started flying up, and he wondered if he could fly a little as well now that his body was so light, and turned out he could as he met the monster up in the air and sliced it in half, putting an end to it. After that, he decided to use this new feature on Ale as well, and when he selected her name, her body began to glow green, and she could also immediately feel the power surging within her. Another monster was right there for her to test out her new abilities as well, and the moment she launched the light javelin at it, its power had skyrocketed as well, and it completely amazed her as it took down the monster in one hit and exploded on contact. Chamber began to figure out that this feature was basically giving them all a power boost, and he wondered what would happen if he applied it on Mai as well. But just then, Ale noticed that there was something strange happening at the mountain peak, and wondered if there were more than just wyverns there. He hoped that that was not the case, but nonetheless, he also understood that they must be ready if they stumbled upon a fierce battle like the one with those black goblins. Ale was starting to get a little worried, and when he saw that, he assured her that with this party, they could now definitely handle a wyvern, and even if things got south and it became dangerous, they could just always retreat back to the city. Ale agreed, and with that, they decided to head to the summit the next morning. The next day, as the three of them made their way up the mountain and were almost at the summit, they encountered yet another panther leo in their way. But then, when he took a closer look at it, he realized that this one was completely different from the one he faced before, as it had two heads. He decided to go all out because even though he wanted to save his strength for the wyvern, he knew very well that this was not a monster that he could hold back against either. Ale enchanted his sword with light magic, and he charged straight towards the two-headed panther. But then suddenly, before he could even do anything, something grabbed the panther and took it out in an instant. A black wyvern had appeared right in front of them. The two of them had never heard about a pitch-black wyvern, and he guessed that it could be a special case just like Mai. But at the same time, he also wondered if it was like that black goblin which was simply blessed by an evil god. Ale did not even want to think about that possibility, but nonetheless, it was very much possible, and one thing that was clear was the monster in front of them was definitely not normal. Hence, they decided to fight it with everything they had got. The wyvern flew up in the sky, and just as it was about to attack them using its fire breath, Ale asked Chamber to provide her the party boost. The wyvern unleashed its fire breath right on top of them, covering the entire area in flames, and when it stopped, it was revealed that she had saved them by creating a magical shield all around them. Chamber was simply amazed, while she herself was surprised to see that it worked, since magical barriers could not usually hold this much amount of damage, and in the end, it was only possible because of the party boost technique. It was now time for them to counterattack, and she launched a light javelin at it, landing a direct hit on the wyvern even when it was flying up in the air. The javelin had pierced one of its wings, however it was not enough to make it crash down, and it slowly descended, hovering closer to the ground as it could no longer fly properly. Chamber then got an idea, and he looked at Mai, asking her to help him out. He first used the party boost skill on her to enhance her physical damage reduction skill, and then he started swinging his sword in the air to charge it up with lightning. Mei jumped in the air, and the plan was to strike her with the charged up sword since she had a resistance to lightning from the magic barrier, and then he swung his sword, hitting a home run and sending her flying like a ball. He named this attack Lightning Cannonball, and it hit the wyvern straight in the face, knocking it down on the ground. Ale called him out and questioned him if he was actually taking her half-joking ideas. She told him while they were drinking that seriously, and he replied that this one was in fact a great idea, and he had been practicing this move secretly with Mei for a while now. But putting all that aside, the fight was still far from over, and he decided to keep up the pressure on the monster. He charged towards it, and when the monster attacked him, he dodged it and swiftly closed in on it. He stabbed its already damaged wing and completely sliced it up, stopping it from flying anymore for good. But then, the black wyvern began to transform, and weird patterns appeared all over its body. Chamber was shocked seeing those green patterns emerging on its body, and he realized that this monster was indeed just like the black goblin he had faced, as the patterns looked exactly like what he had seen on that goblin. But it did not matter right now if it was a blessing bearer or something, and he jumped up in the air to end it right there. However, even when he landed a direct hit, his sword simply bounced off, and he was completely stunned. The wyvern's body was hardening, and while he was thinking about what he should do next, the monster tried to attack him with its tail. But just then, Mei jumped in between to save him. He did not want her to get hurt, and he quickly pulled her out of the way, but in the process he got hurt himself. At least the two of them were still alive, and Ale quickly rushed up to him to heal him. He thanked her for being so concerned about him. However, he told her that it was no use because the wyvern's tail had poison in it. Her healing wouldn't be able to cure the poison that was already in his body now, and the only option for him was to take it down before the poison spread all over his body. Ale had no idea how they would get through that hard scale of that monster, but Chamber had got a plan, and he asked Mei to come with him. He instructed Ale to support them from a distance while the two of them sprinted straight towards the black wyvern. This was their final chance to end it. As he dodged multiple strikes from it, the monster charged up its fire breath to attack him. However, Ale stopped it right there and shot a light javelin in its face. The poison was starting to affect Chamber, making him feel dizzy, and he knew that he needed to hurry up while he still could. But he could not do it alone, and he asked Mei to launch him. Using her cushion-like fur, she made him bounce off, and as he flew up in the air, he finally saw the spot that he had been looking for. There was a wound on its head, and even though its whole body was hard now, he was sure that must be the weak spot. Hence, he unleashed all the power stored up in his sword and stabbed it directly in the head. The black wyvern was completely toasted, and he had managed to successfully defeat it. However, it was too late for Chamber as the poison had spread through his entire body. But just then, they got a message that all three of them had leveled up and were now fully restored. Worried, Ale called out to him, asking him if he was alright, and he got back up like nothing had happened and showed a thumbs up, telling them that the poison was gone. The two of them were glad to hear that. Furthermore, seeing how much loot they got, he wanted to sell as much as he could since black wyverns were quite rare, and Ale stated there was no way they could carry all of it, to which he agreed as well. So he then decided to head back to town and hope that there should be fewer monsters now. But suddenly, he felt the presence of that mysterious cloaked man, and it straight up sent chills down his spine. He tried to figure out what exactly could give off such an ominous feeling, and wondered if it was once again someone with a blessing from the evil god. However, there was no time to think about that, and he shouted for everyone to stay on their guard. But then, before he even realized, the man stabbed him in the chest with his bare hands. The man was disappointed that that's all it took to end him, while Ale was horrified as Chamber's blood splattered all over the place.